Welcome to Puzzles and Solutions. Today I'll be going through the Mensa Denmark IQ test. After finding the Mensa Norway IQ test last week, I wanted to try some more Mensa IQ tests, and the first one I found was the Denmark one. The IQ test have 39 puzzles, and the score ranges from below 70 IQ at its lowest, and a specific quantity between 70 IQ and 135 IQ, and then above 145 IQ is the highest when all puzzles are solved correctly. If you would like to take the test yourself, the link will be in the description, and if you're just following along, I suggest that you pause at the higher difficulty puzzle and try to think of your own solution before listening to mine. Puzzle number 1. I mean, what is there to say about this one? The same picture repeats itself in every row, column, diagonal, so the correct answer is C. Puzzle 2. This is a row and column puzzle. Similarities repeat themselves on the rows and the columns. On the columns we have 1, 2 and 3 colored areas repeating in a similar manner, and the rows have red, green and blue color for those specific tiles. Since our answer is in the last column and the last row, we know that it's blue with 3 colored tiles identical to the pictures in its column, so the correct answer is F. Puzzle 3. Another row and column puzzle. In the columns we have where the placement of the lines are, left, middle and right. On the rows we have how many lines, so 1, 2 and 3. With this information we know that the answer is 3 lines on the right. The answer is G. Puzzle number 4. A 2x2 puzzle. There is a rotation of 90 degrees when moving between any tiles in row or columns, leading to the answer C. Puzzle 5. Another row and column puzzle. 1, 2 and 3 squares on the columns, position left, middle and right on the rows, leading to 3 squares on the right. B is the correct answer. Puzzle 6. Another row and column puzzle. Right, middle and left positions on the columns for the vertical line, and top, middle and bottom positions on the rows for the horizontal line. This leads to a left vertical line with a bottom horizontal line. H is correct. Puzzle 7. Another row and column puzzle. This puzzle have 2 row and column elements, which are the 2 squares which behave differently from each other, but separately they both behave in a predictable way. Let's first look at the top left red square in the first picture. For the columns we have left, middle, right positions. For the rows we have top, middle and bottom positions, leading to a red square in the bottom right corner. If we look at the answers, only E and F have a red square there, so we can remove all the other answers. Now let's look how the red square in the bottom right corner of the first picture behaves. Right, middle, left for the columns, bottom, middle, top for the rows. Therefore, the answer has a red square in the left top corner, and the correct answer is F. Puzzle number 8. If we look at the top right towards the bottom left diagonal, we see a repetition of shapes, and the diagonals repeat every 3 diagonals. Therefore, our answer is a circle, and the correct answer is A. Puzzle 9. Another 2x2 puzzle. There is no changes in the rows, and there is an inversion of color in the columns, both leading to the answer H. Puzzle 10. These are what I like to call addition puzzles. You take 2 pictures and add them together in some way. In this example, we have the pictures in the first column added with the pictures in the third column, which creates the second column. If we take a look at the last row, the first picture have a triangle pointing up, and the second picture has 2 triangles, one pointing up and one pointing down, so our answer has to be a triangle pointing down. C is the correct solution. Puzzle 11. This is a new kind of IQ puzzle I haven't encountered before. These puzzles I will refer to as scaling puzzles. For an example, let's look at the first row. We have a triangle and a scaling factor. The triangle is then scaled up in the direction of the scaling factor and keeps growing until it's as large as the scaling factor. And for the last row, we have a square and a 2-dimensional scaling factor. The square is then increased both in height and width until it's as tall and wide as the scaling factor. This leaves answer C as the correct answer. Puzzle 12. Another diagonal puzzle, but this one goes in both diagonals. If we look at the top right towards the bottom left diagonal, we see the orientation or the angle of the shapes repeats. This leaves only vertical lines as our answer, so G or H. If we look at the top left towards the bottom right diagonal, we see a repetition of quantity of lines leading to 1 vertical line as our answer. H is the correct solution. Puzzle 13. This is both a diagonal and a column puzzle. First, let's look at the diagonal from the top right to the bottom left. We have a repetition of color, leading our answer being blue and red, so A or E. For the columns, we have a clockwise rotation of 1 per diagonal to the right. So if we take picture 8, rotate the colored areas 1 square clockwise, and then color the yellow area red, we get our answer E as the correct solution. Puzzle 14. Another addition puzzle, but this one involves cancellation as well. If two lines overlaps on an addition, they cancel each other out and become nothing. This puzzle can both be solved on the rows and the columns. Let's go by the columns first. We have a rotated square added with a bigger square that contains half a square with a line running through it. So half the square is cancelled out on the left side and we get half a square left on the right side with our line running through it and our bigger square surrounding it. This is identical to G. For the rows, the horizontal middle line would cancel out and we would get a simple addition also leading to G. Puzzle 15. Another addition puzzle, but the addition is in the middle rows or the middle columns. Again, we can base ourselves on rows or columns, both leading to an arrow pointing to the top left, and our answer is D. Puzzle 16. Another and simpler addition puzzle. This one is only addition in the rows, so the picture in the last column is just the sum of the picture in the two first. This leads to a triangle with a square inside it, and B is our correct solution. Puzzle number 17. Column and row puzzle with a red square moving in clockwise direction. In the rows, it only moves one position per picture to the right. So if we base ourselves on picture 8 and move the red square one to the right, we get solution F. Puzzle number 18. Addition puzzle. Middle rows or columns are the sum of the first and third rows or columns respectively. If we base ourselves on the last row, we see quite easily that the answer has to be a dot, so E is the correct solution. Basing ourselves on the last column also leads to the dot. Puzzle 19. The easiest way to solve this is just to go by columns and move the red squares one position down compared to the previous picture, leading to B as the correct answer. Puzzle 20. This is a diagonal puzzle on both diagonals. Let's first go from top left to bottom right, and we see a repetition of color. So our answer has to be red. If you look from top right to bottom left, we see a repetition of how many spaces there are between the colored tiles. This leads to our answer being a red tile with one tile separating each colored tile. This leaves answer A, C or H. Now also looking at this diagonal, we see that the picture in the diagonal sequence always have their colored tiles moved 3 tiles clockwise per row down. So if we base ourselves on picture 4 and rotate it 3 tiles clockwise, we get C as the correct solution. Puzzle 21. This puzzle is based on 4 circle segments moving towards each other. So we gotta use picture 8 to predict how the segments will keep going after they keep moving through each other and towards the center of the circle. So we have picture 7 like this, picture 8 like this, and then picture 9 will look somewhat like this, leading to A being the correct solution. Puzzle 22. First, let's look at the top right going towards the bottom left diagonal, and we can easily see how there is a repetition of the outer pattern leading to our answer having a red square around it. This leaves answer A, E or G as correct. In the top left to bottom right diagonal, we have a repetition of the inner shape with the weird C shape in the main diagonal, so the correct solution is E. Puzzle 23. Another identical puzzle. Top right to the bottom left diagonal is a repetition of the bottom segment of the picture, leading to a wide shape on our answer, so either D or E is the correct answer. And looking from the top left to the bottom right diagonal, we have a repetition of the top segment of the picture, which is the opening in the middle for the main diagonal, leading to E as the correct answer. Puzzle 24. This is the third identical puzzle in a row. Top right to bottom left leads to a repetition of the main shape, which leaves a triangle for our answer, so C, F or H is correct. Looking at the top left to the bottom right diagonal, we see a repetition of the circles. In one, the circles are whole and repeat on the inside, in one they are hollow and repeat on the outside, and in one they are hollow and repeat on the inside. The main diagonal has a whole circle on the inside, leading to C as the correct answer. Puzzle 25. There is a repetition on the top left to the bottom right diagonal. F is correct. Puzzle 26. This is a very interesting puzzle. I liked it very much. So we have 3 different points of rotation which have some line attached to them and they rotate by some rules. First, let's go by the middle left dot in the first picture. Moving down the rows, they just move 1 dot clockwise, and moving down the columns, they just rotate 2 dots counterclockwise. So if we have our answer here, we can see how the middle left dot rotates 1 dot clockwise in the rows leading to this angle, or how it rotates 2 dots counterclockwise in the columns leading to the same answer. Okay, we're done with the one on the left in the first picture. Let's go by the middle one. This dot has 2 lines pointing in opposite directions of each other. For the rows, we have 1 clockwise rotation per move to the next column. For the columns, we have 1 counterclockwise rotation per move to the next row, both leading to a horizontal line as our answer. So actually just knowing the rotation of the first dot was enough to solve the puzzle, but I think just explaining the full derivation of the answer is better. Last dot on the right in the first picture. This one actually has the same rotation as the first dot, but just different starting positions. Let's just go by the last column and rotate it 2 positions counterclockwise, and we end up with a line pointing straight downwards. D is the correct solution. Puzzle 27. This is an addition puzzle with cancellation. If we base ourselves on the rows, we see that the first picture adds with the second picture, and if we go by the columns, we see the exact same thing. The first picture adds with the second picture to create the third picture. Basing ourselves on the third column, we see that the line on top cancel each other out, and we just have picture 6 without a top and with a bottom. So D is the correct solution. Puzzle number 28. This is a diagonal puzzle on both diagonals. Top right to the bottom left diagonal leads to a purple circle in our answer, leaving C, D or E as the correct answer. Top left to bottom right diagonal leads to a repetition of the middle shape, which is a blue cross in the case for the main diagonal. D is the correct answer. Puzzle 29. This is another scaling puzzle with a new concept, which is rotation of the scaling factors. So we can see by the columns that the last picture is just the first picture, just scaled down or rotated by some degrees, which is described by the scaling factor in the middle. Let's do an example. Big box, small scaling factor, small box. And for our answer, we have a big throwing star with a small scaling factor. So we take the big star, take the small scaling factor, and we scale it down. But we also see that the scaling factor has a 45 degrees rotation counterclockwise, so we just have to rotate our picture 45 degrees counterclockwise to make it identical to the scaling factor. I'll just add a picture above so you can see it better. So we rotate it 45 degrees counterclockwise, and of course B is our answer. Puzzle number 30. This is a mixture of addition puzzle and scaling puzzles. The pictures in the middle column is scaled down to fit inside the smaller shape in the pictures in the first column, and then they are added together to produce the pictures in the third column. So for our answer, we take picture 8, scale it down to fit inside picture 7, and then add them together, and we get E as the correct solution. Puzzle 31. So this is an addition puzzle in disguise. So if we just normally add picture 1 and 2 together, we have some area which is not overlapped by both of them. This area is then mirrored over the lines of the square. Now we just remove picture 1 and 2 and add picture 1, and then we draw around the area which was not overlapped, and then remove the insides leading to the last picture. This works for every row and every column in this picture. Let's look at the last row to get an answer. So the same steps to get the mirrored area. We draw around it, and then we remove the inside, leading to picture D as the correct solution. Puzzle 32. This is a 1-column puzzle. So our first column has 2 diagonal lines going from top left to bottom right. Our second has 1 diagonal line going from top left to bottom right, and 1 diagonal line going from top right to bottom left. The last one has 2 diagonal lines from top right to bottom left. Keep in mind that these are all in the same position, so in the top left and the bottom right. And for the rows, we have in row 1, 2 diagonal lines from top right to bottom left. In row 2, we have 1 diagonal line from top right to bottom left, and 1 diagonal line from top left to bottom right. And in row 3, we have 2 diagonal lines going from top left to bottom right. Keep in mind that these are also in the same position, which is top right and bottom left. So just adding the last row and the last column together, we get a diamond shape, which is our answer A. Puzzle 33. This is just a simple diagonal puzzle on 2 diagonals. Top right to bottom left diagonal, we see a repetition of shapes, and our answer has to be a double helix shape. Top left to bottom right diagonal, we see all the shapes point in the same direction, so our answer has to be vertical, and B is the correct solution. Puzzle 34. This is an addition puzzle with a twist. So in this puzzle, we just have some white circles which have black circles either inside them or outside them. If we look at the first row, we see how the black circles inside the first picture and the second picture add together and produce 2 black circles inside the circle of the final picture. And in the second row, something else is happening. The black circle inside the circle in the first picture cancel out one of the black circles outside the circle in the second picture. This leaves 2 black circles outside the circle in the third picture. And of course, by the last row, we have 2 black circles outside and 2 inside, which leads to a full cancellation, so our answer will just be a white circle, and A is the correct solution. Puzzle 35. This is a row puzzle with similarities to our factor puzzle. The middle column describes the mirroring between the first picture and the third picture. For example, we have the first row, we have this mirror factor, which is equivalent to a line going across the diagonal from top left to bottom right. Now if we place this on picture 1 and then mirror it along that diagonal, we get picture 3. So for our last row, we have this mirror factor equivalent to a line going across from top right to bottom left. Place it on top of the first picture in the row and mirror it across the diagonal to get picture C. C is the correct answer. Puzzle 36. This is a diagonal puzzle with several rules across the same diagonal. So if we look at the top right to the bottom left diagonal, we see firstly that the way the picture points is always the same for every picture in the diagonals, leading to a picture pointing from right to left. This leaves A, D, E or G as the solution. And secondly, we can see that the colors change in a specific pattern across the diagonal. I'm talking about the colors of the rectangle of a specific length, and I'm not talking about the position of these rectangles. So if we look at the rectangles of same length across the same diagonal, we see that it changes in a way that red becomes green, green becomes blue, and blue becomes red. Using these rules on the fourth picture, we see that the big triangle has to be blue, the medium triangle has to be red, and the small triangle has to be green. These colors only match A, so A is the correct solution. Puzzle 37. Just quickly to see the obvious pattern of the gray lines, I'll remove the colored tiles. We see how they're added from left to right, filling 2 by 2 squares at a time, first in the top right, then in the bottom left, and moving towards the right and repeating. So our answer will have a gray pattern, kind of like a chessboard pattern, alternating between white and gray. So now we have to figure out how the colored tiles move. Now imagine that the 2 colored tiles in the first picture is the same for all the colored tiles in all the pictures. They're moving one towards the right in each picture. When they reach the edge of a picture, they pop up again on the row below it in the most left position. Now the reason they do not appear in every picture is because the gray tiles sit on top of them and blocking them from you. So those are the basic rules on how the squares move, but we have to ask ourselves, how do they change their colors? Every time a blue tile goes under a gray tile, it becomes a red tile, and every time a red tile goes under a gray tile, it becomes a blue tile. Hopefully you can see all of this movement and changing of color as they move through the picture, starting in picture 1 and following all these rules to picture 9. So by looking at picture 8, we can see that the red tile is about to move outside the square, where it will teleport to the row below in the leftmost position. So the answer will have to have a red square in the third row and first column, leaving A or F as the correct solution. By looking at picture 7, we see a blue square moving under a gray square going to picture 8, where it changes to become a red square. In picture 9, it will appear as a red square in the third row and third column, leading to F as the correct answer. Puzzle number 38. At first, this puzzle may seem a bit overwhelming with all the colors to keep track of, but it's a fairly easy puzzle. All you have to do is just to focus at one color at a time. We see that in every row and column, the black tiles appear once and only once in every row and column of the pictures. So looking at the first row, we have a black square in the last row and last column. In the second picture, we have a black square in the first row and first column. So this means that in our last square, we have to have a black square in our middle row and middle column. So applying this to the last row leaves a black tile in the last row and first column. If we look at the answers, A, B, E, G, and H have a black square in the bottom left corner. Let's find a new color. Let's pick white. Again, the same rules. We can derive that there is a white tile in the third row and third column. So if we look at the answers, that leaves only A, B, and G with a white square in the bottom right corner. Before just wasting time trying a new color, let's look at the answers. We have to ask ourselves, is there any color which is not similar in every picture? And yes, there is. red is not common for any of the answers. So let's see what position red should be in, and we can derive the solution. So we see that the first row and last row is taken, so it has to be in the middle row, and we see that the first and second column is taken, so it has to be in the last column, and we get that A is the correct answer. Puzzle number 39, the final puzzle. So after looking at this puzzle for some time, one thing caught my eye. There is a repetition of 3 squares and 3 circles in the last row. It seems to move towards the right. Now, if you look at all squares on all pictures, do all squares become circles and move on to the right? Well, actually no. But if you look only at certain parts of the picture, so if you look at the 2 first columns of every picture and then outputting every second and third column of the next picture to the right, now looking at the same area, we can also see that circles become triangles and triangles become squares. So here we see our area in the first columns and how they shift over to the right in the second picture and become other shapes. This also applies for column 2 and column 3, so we can actually solve the puzzle just by knowing these 6 shapes. Only F in the 2 last columns have 2 circles on the top, 2 squares in the middle, and 1 square and 1 circle on the bottom, so F is the correct answer. Now before ending the video, let's try to deduce the rules for going from the last column to the first column. Now look at the first row. We see there is 2 squares on top and bottom and 1 triangle in the middle. And on picture 3 we have 2 circles on the top and 1 square on the bottom. So if we use the rules we already deduced earlier, that squares become circles, circles become triangles, triangles become squares, we see that the pattern holds up for this square if we just shift every pattern 1 down, so that the top becomes the middle becomes the bottom, and the bottom becomes the top. Now if we apply these rules to all the last columns, becoming all the first columns, we see that these rules hold up. I hope you liked the video. I'll show you the score of the IQ test if picking every answer I came to in this video. Also, goodbye, I'll see you in the next puzzle.